Welcome to the Iron Edge. As always, I'm very excited to see this week's guest, two-time Britain's strongest man, under 105 kilo, Mr. Tom Owens. Tom, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate.
Of course, yeah, no, I'm excited to talk to you. Obviously, we've crossed paths a couple of times with Cerberus and all that sort of stuff. So I'm just going to dive. I'll dive straight into the deep end. Who's Tom today? Obviously, you just won Britain's. Strongman, all that sort of stuff. But who's Tom? Who's the man?
Well, I mean, very much strongman is my life at the minute. All of my work revolves around strongman. Obviously, I compete as well. So that very much is it. There's not a lot
Yeah.
other than that. I mean, in my earlier days, I was well into sports. I was a badminton player back in the day, which always surprises people. I think a lot of people expect a strongman to come from a rugby background, but that was never me. Um, and I was well into that until I went off to uni and then kind of fell out of love with that. I fell out of love with that. Started going to the gym when I was about 20 years old, just to kind of lose a little bit of weight, and one
Mm.
thing kind of led to another, and here we are.
Yeah, no, I totally get it because that was sort of my thing. Like, I was never rugby, never anything like that, and literally started going to the gym because of Schwarzenegger movies, and then eventually got introduced to strongman, and then here we are, fucking
Yeah,
20 years later.
there you go.
Literally 20 years later. So yeah, so obviously with strongman and all that sort of stuff, like we're very goal driven. Are you? I'm assuming based on the fact that your life revolves around strongman to a certain extent. Um, a lot of your day to day is goal driven, and like what sort of percentage of your day is down to strongman? I mean, is it everything? Is it literally from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, or how would you define your sort of your life?
Yeah, well, yeah. To be honest, it is kind of the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed.
Hmm.
All of my nutrition is based around like performance in strongman. So as
Hmm.
soon as I wake up, that's when that starts, and every next meal is I'm eating this for a purpose. And then I coach strongman full time. So I'm always constantly surrounded by it. It sounds sad. I know a lot of people say that you should have other things in your life, because what if strongman goes horribly wrong, or you get a
Hmm.
career changing injury. But that very much is it, to be honest. But it's what I love to do. It's what I love to teach others to do. I love to get people to achieve things that they've never thought possible. And that's just that's what I love doing, man.
Yeah. So are you doing coaching in person or online or both? Like, how do you sort of set that up for yourself?
Yeah, so I started out as just a regular old PT, just working at Pure Gym. I built a business through that, and then when I started going
Okay.
into strongman, a couple of my clients kind of made that transition as well. And
Hmm.
then uh, I then changed to more of like a specific strongman focus. So that's kind of all I do now. But I do one to ones in person. That can be with regular clients that I've got, or sometimes I get athletes from around the country will pop up just for a session here and there. Um, I would say it's probably about 60% online, 40% in person at the moment, which is about where I want it to be. Obviously, I don't want to take too much one way or the other, just in case.
Hmm.
You need to have enough time. You need to be able to spread your time out nicely. Otherwise,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, your clients end up getting a worse service, which is not ideal.
There's so many like coaches around. Like, what do you feel like the differentiation is from perspective? Like, what obviously just to roll it back a little bit. You said you went to like you were going to uni. I'm assuming that
Yeah.
was for a sports related topic.
So when I first went to uni, it was for business and marketing, and I just
Okay.
did that because I was good at that in school, and I kind
Yeah.
of felt like that's what I had to do. Like when you do A levels here in the UK specifically, like you just feel like you have to go to uni. Or that's how I felt when I was. Well, I guess
Yeah.
this was 16 years ago now. So because I was good at it, that's what I thought I had to do. It didn't last very long, and then I did go back to uni and do health and exercise science. Stuck with that, really enjoyed it. I learned a lot of things through that, and it's helped my business to this day. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was where I was going to go with it. Was like um, having that background, like it's obviously you're how do I put this nicely? You're probably more educated than a lot of strongman coaches around, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like do you feel there's an issue within the strongman community of coaches who are sort of based upon, oh, I win a show and then I'm going to coach and all that sort of stuff? Is that an issue, or what's your take on some of that stuff?
Yeah, I think definitely because it's not regulated, is it? So you don't need any
Yeah.
qualifications to be like an online coach.
Mhm.
Obviously, to be at a reputable gym, you need to have at least like a level 3 PT qualification to do that. Which that in itself isn't by any means a high standard of coaching. If you've got a level 3
Yeah.
PT, I think a lot of things are learned on the job. But yeah, you don't need anything. You don't need any insurance really to be an online coach. So it can be quite dangerous. So yeah, a lot of the
How
time you
does
will.
that work? Sorry to cut you off, but like, how does that work in the UK from an insurance standpoint? So, like over here, like you don't need to have insurance either if you're doing online stuff. But I was having the guest spoke to last week. He raised a point, and he was saying about like insurance from a perspective of like you're still technically instructing somebody, so your ass is still on the line. Is that the same over there? I mean, obviously, I've never. I mean, I moved away from the UK before I started, doing any coaching and stuff like that. But like,
Right.
you know, how is that over there with you guys?
So because I do one-to-ones, I have public liability insurance, which I
Yeah.
think everybody who does one-to-ones needs that. I'm not exactly sure how it works online, but I assume because I've got PLI, then that's fine.
Mm,
Fortunately, I've never been sued, so that's
yeah.
never cropped up,
Yeah. Right.
and hopefully that never will crop up. But I think a lot of people online coaching just think that they're not really fully liable for what they do,
Mhm.
and I guess to a point, you're not really liable. I suppose it's like
It's a strange one. If you really
yeah,
think about it,
a
it's
bit of
like
a gray area.
like the client is really, you know, you're taking like you're assuming risk. I mean, let's be honest. Like we're assuming risk when we go and compete in strongman, when we train strongman and all that sort of stuff. Like I can't. I mean, oh, actually, I was about to say I can't ever think of anyone ever getting hurt at a show and then suing people. But then I remember that there was a couple of instances over there that happened not too long ago.
Yeah, it did happen. I think the ground that the implement was on was changed, and then the athlete slipped and destroyed his knee or something. So
Ah,
I think
shit.
they did sue the promoter for that, which is like, so this one's an odd one because it's like, should they have sued the promoter? Possibly not. Everyone says it's like morally you shouldn't do that because you've assumed the risk by doing the sport,
Hmm.
but then also the sport's dangerous enough without changing things. So if something's changed last minute and it becomes more dangerous, then it's hard to say, man. From a moral standpoint, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have sued that promoter because that promoter's just trying to do the best by the athletes, I suppose. But if you make something more dangerous and somebody hurts themselves, then that's kind of your
I just
responsibility.
think back to my career and like some of the stuff we did. Like I remember doing UK Scotland's Strongest Man, and we had a max axle, and it was in a field, and the platform was just a stall mat, like a regular rubber mat, and we were doing max axle in the rain.
Right.
And I think back on it now, and I'm like, this might be not the smartest idea. You know,
Just no health and safety whatsoever.
it was just, but it's like that. That's just how it was. It was all like sort of like that's what strongman sort of was, and it's morphed a little bit, which I think is it's greatly benefited the sport, but then there's been also like I don't know, it's just changed. I mean, when did you get into it? How long have you been? How many years have you been in strongman now?
Oh, so I've not actually been in for that long. I did a competition in 2019, but at that point I knew nothing of strongman. I was literally told that there was a strongman competition. I thought, oh, that'll be fun. So I did one of them. I didn't train for it. I just kind of turned up on the day and did the thing. And then it wasn't until 2020, back end of 2021, when I did my first actual competition that I trained for. I did like an intermediates competition and then an opens. And then in 2022, I actually took ill in 2022, so I never intended to continue competing. I was very heavy. I was at 132 kilos, which at 5'9" isn't very good. So I started just
Yeah.
losing weight for health purposes,
Mm.
and then little did I know that there was a 105 class. So I thought I'll give this a go, and I've been doing that since the back end of 2022. So OSG
It's
2022 was my first show in the 105s, which was a very much
oh
an eye
wow.
opening experience.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like I sit here and I talk about like oh back in the day, and then like I talk to athletes who like being involved in the sport since 2019, 2020, 21, like still a long time, 5, 6 years, 7 years, and then I sit and think like, oh shit, my first competition was 2006.
Yeah, wow,
And
right,
it's like
okay.
shit. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Um, but yeah, like the 105 stuff. So like, was that just you got there and it was just like, okay, let's go type of thing. Like that was like you zoned in on that, and that was the one that you wanted to focus on. Did you ever think about going up to heavyweight again or anything like that?
Last year I qualified for Giants Live England's Strongest Man,
Okay,
and I
yeah.
was still at the normal body weight that I would be for a
Mm,
105 show. And it was kind of after that one, I was a bit like, oh, I could possibly do with committing to this. And then,
mm,
you go into Giants Live, there's a lot more exposure. The experience itself was just amazing. Like you had people
yeah,
coming up to you and asking for autographs at the end, which is just like, why
yeah,
do you
yeah,
want
yeah.
my autograph? I'm just me. I just lift things. I'm nothing
That's the
special.
intro. Yeah, it's so funny. Like to sit and like looking back at my career as well. It's like there's been tons of times like that, and it's like hey, I'm just a guy that's lifting weights, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. It's just so funny, and especially over there, like it's what it's growing to in the UK is it's phenomenal, to put it mildly.
Yeah, it's really good. And we've got lots of different pathways now. Obviously, you've got the natural strongman pathway as well, which I think is fantastic. We do a little bit of close work with them, and what they're doing is brilliant, and it's great to see that growing as well. There's just
Mhm.
so many things now, and it's great to see.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like I talk to people over here, and they'll ask me like, "Oh, well, why is strongman so much bigger in the UK, and why is it like, well, why are these arenas competitions getting filled with 10,000 people, and you can't fill a stadium with 3,000 over here?"
Yeah,
And I'm like, it's a very simple thing, size. Like you can drive, to a lot of these competitions very easily and not take that much time, you
yeah,
know, 5, 6 hours. It's not that bad a drive. Whereas over here, it's just a whole different ballgame. Like I go like in the winter, we go snowboarding and we'll do a 3 hour drive one way to go snowboard for the day and then drive home that same day, you
right.
know? And it's just a whole different thing. I drive, if I was to drive, I'm trying to think, 6 hours, I'm maybe in Philadelphia, which is not that far, but you know, it's still
Yeah,
a hell of a way. So people will sit and not talk about that. And it's so much more accessible over there. Like you're not spending, $1,000 to go to a competition. Plus the model is just different. It's a very spectator driven model. And I think that's why it's really exploded in the UK. And, yes, you still have federations over here where we're growing, but it's nowhere near what it is in Europe. Like, yes, Naturals is over here, but it feels way bigger over there. Obviously, you've got Giants Live, you've got UK's over there. Obviously, official Strawman linked in with all of it as well. And it's just a whole different experience, I feel like. And the
yeah.
growth of the sport is incredible.
Like you say, with it being that much more accessible, it's not only is it easier to get to comps to spectate, but it's easier to get to comps to compete. And the more people in more shows is, it's inevitably going to grow the sport. It's more eyes on the
Mhm.
sport from people on the outside, which is exactly what we need. So yeah, that's probably that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just getting those bodies. Um, so to roll it back a bit, with Strawman being everything, um, do you find yourself ever living for like the next milestone, the next goal? Like, okay, I'll be happy when I place X at this show, or hit this deadlift or whatever. Do you ever find yourself in that sort of situation?
Yeah, a lot of the time, some of the time, it feels like I'm kind of treading water until the competition, where I'm just kind
Mm,
of life is just happening around me, and
mm,
I'm waiting for this next competition to come. Which, don't get me wrong, I realize that sounds really fucking sad, um, but that just a lot of the time that just is what it is, and
yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I guess I do kind of live for the next milestone. The next milestone for me would be Europe's in October. So there'll be things happening before that. Like Natural Strongman Europe's is coming up, so I'm going to go do the commentary there, for example. Um,
Okay.
but my kind of like the main thing in my head right now is Europe's is happening in October, so
Mhm.
everything has to go, towards that.
Yeah, how do you balance that then from a perspective? Because I know that you've a partner, right?
Yeah,
You've a
yeah.
girlfriend, fiance. Um, how do you balance that? Because like that was one of my struggles was that everything revolved around strongman, and there was challenges to put it mildly with that. Like everything. The moment I woke up, especially in the UK, because I was competing a lot more in the UK because of the accessibility.
Mm,
As soon as I got over here, I couldn't believe how much more expensive it was for me to go compete.
yeah.
Um, and that was challenging. It's like, okay, everything's strongman. And the moment I wake up in the morning to the moment time I go to bed, everything is strongman. So how are you sort of balancing some of that stuff?
Well, fortunately, she's well into it as well. Like she competes as well.
Yeah.
She competes in the naturals. So she gets it, which is great. Obviously, a lot of her day revolves around strongman as well. She has a nutrition coach and a
Hmm.
performance coach as well. So a lot of hers revolves around that as well. So we just kind of bounce off each other. We help each other out
Yeah.
with our goals. And she's a star, mate. She's absolutely fantastic. Like a lot of the time, she's cooking my food for me and preparing things, and yeah, she does a lot for me, to be honest. So I think we're a good team, and I think it
Yeah.
definitely helps that we have similar goals.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a huge one. And that was one of the things where if I found at least that if someone could at least understand,
Yeah,
like my wife, she didn't compete in strongwoman, um, but she was heavy in CrossFit, and then she went and did like half Ironmans and all that sort of stuff, and it's just a different mentality. I think like
yeah,
when you meet somebody who understands some of that sacrifice, because really that's what it is. It's a sacrifice, and
it is. Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
balance all of it. And that's the thing. Like even with like training, where I'm at now with I have it's 3 months tomorrow is my son, and I'm like this trying to figure it all out and make it all sort of connect is definitely a challenge. And it's not like I'm not 21 anymore where I have no responsibility.
yeah.
Um, and then how does that, so like with you, with the business, like from that aspect, what's your, do you find the business a challenge from a perspective of, you know, just making sure everything is copacetic and everything at all times, and that, you're putting enough work into the business and into clients and then into your own training and all that sort of stuff? Or is it very much like it just melds because it is the one sort of sport?
I would say everything just kind of fits nicely in that sense.
Yeah.
The one thing I probably don't do enough of is marketing myself, marketing
Mm.
the business. So I could do with another 5 or 6 clients. That'd be grand.
Yeah.
But the amount of work that I've got on right now, it just fits really nicely in with my life, and everything's done on time. And when I go away for competitions, I'm taking my laptop, and that's fine. Like I don't mind sitting the night before a competition and writing programs because that's what I'm used to doing. So I like
Mm.
to try and make things as normal as possible when I go away. So
Yeah. Yeah.
like the night before OSG in uh, last year, 2025 OSG, I was just sat there writing programs, and then the night before day two, again sitting writing programs because it just
Mm.
keeps things normal, and it
Yeah.
just it does fit together nicely. Like I say, I could do with maybe putting a bit more time into the marketing side of things and the social media side of things, but the actual content of the business itself is it works. It works. It works.
Yeah, I mean, you seem to do very well on social media, though. From what I've seen, obviously with being involved with Cerberus and just obviously being on social media myself, like you seem to do very well with that from content generation standpoint. Is that something that do you go through phases of that? Do you go through phases like I do, where it's a case of like, okay, I really need to push and get more of this out, and then go, fuck, I really can't be fucked, but then just sort of pull back from it.
I think what it is for me is when I'm in a phase of training where it's particularly heavy, it's really easy to make content
Yeah,
because
yeah.
generally all I post is my own training. If something goes wrong, I'll post that as well. But like at the minute, we're at the start of a brand new block. Everything's really light, but feels really shit. So
Yeah.
um, at the minute, I'm like, well, fucking hell, I've got to put something out there, but I don't really know what I need to
Mm.
do. So I definitely struggle with content generation and like thinking of cool ideas. And, I see a lot of people posting every day, and some of the things they're posting are just short little things. And it's like, well, I should probably do that as well. But I don't, I suppose.
Yeah.
So again, that's just another thing I need to work on. I've got like a decent following on social media, which is great, and I love that people follow me and they like watching my training footage. I think if
Mhm.
I was to appeal to a wider audience, it would have to be, the more kind of generic influencer style
Yes. Yep.
content, which I'm just not there yet on being confident to deliver that. Um, but it's something that I would have to do if I wanted that to grow.
What do you think holds you back? Like what part of it is this? Like where's the confidence lacking? Is it uh, the what's the word for it? Is it putting yourself out there for more people? That's like a more general demographic versus like a strongman, or what do you think the limiting factor is?
I think it's because the people that follow me now follow me to watch like me do a stupid bag toss or watch me to do a
Yep.
ridiculous stone to shoulder or whatever. So they're not going to be interested in the generic content of like I
Yep.
say, the influencer style content. So for me to go into that, it's like, well, the people that currently follow me probably won't like that, and they've been following me for however long, and I like that they
Yes.
follow me, and I follow a lot of people that post just their training footage, and that's what I like to
Mhm.
watch. And so I guess it's a case of not wanting to put people off, but then also in that instance, you're then not drawing new people in. So like my following has been the same for a good while, and it's just because I haven't taken that step towards doing
Yeah.
a bit more. Or maybe it's because I'm boring as fuck. It could be that as well. There's a good chance it's that one.
It's a hard one though. It's a really hard one because like you said, you've got a following that is watching you for the things you put out, whether it's the bag toss or the log press, the deadlift, the stone to shoulder, or whatever, and then to change your sort of direction. It is one of those ones where it's like, okay, is one, are people going to like it? It's the same as me, like with this project, they bringing this project back again and taking a bit of a different approach where, I, until March this year, like I'd sat on the shelf for about a year or so, and previously it was just talking about how do you get involved in strongman, how do you do this, how do you do that. Whereas now I'm sort of more leaning into the stuff of like, okay, well, what makes you vulnerable? Why do you think it's like, why are you not confident about XYZ? And I think just doing that as well, it's hard to sort of put yourself out there and be like, okay, is someone going to watch this? Are they not going to watch it? Are they going to think it's silly? And where I sort of got to the end of it was like, well, if I'm enjoying it, then does it really matter what people think? But it
Yeah,
does. It does at the same time, though. It's a hard one because you're trying to do it to build something.
yeah. I totally get that because, like I said, I've got a podcast with one of my clients and good friends, Thomas Fisher. Like we hold all of the natural and untested 105 titles in Britain. Funnily enough, so
Wow.
we've been doing that podcast, and we don't get many views. We get like 100 views. I think our most
Mhm.
viewed video has 600 because it's got Thor in it. Like,
Yeah.
but we do that because we enjoy it, and we
Mhm.
are a bit ridiculous on it, and that's okay because I guess we don't have a bunch of people to put off. Whereas
Yeah.
if we had absolutely loads of followers or loads of subscribers, I should say, then we might be a bit more hesitant to to do those things. So yeah, it is a case of very much, you don't want to look daft, you don't want to look silly, you don't want to look like you're doing something that the internet thinks you shouldn't be doing. So yeah, I 100% get that, and I feel the same way. Yeah,
Yeah, it's one of those ones that like took me a while from a perspective of like when I remember filming the first episode of this again with Joe Sullivan, and I was like, okay, I missed this, you know. I
yeah,
enjoy the conversation. I enjoy learning about the other person on the end of the phone type of thing. Um, so it's nice to have some of that stuff. And like my head went to, well, if people like it, then they'll watch it, and if they don't, then fuck it. I'll keep doing what I'm doing for me. I enjoy it anyway, so does it really matter, you know?
that's how it should be. Yeah,
Going back to the yeah, right. That's really how life should be, and I think that so many of us get wrapped up in this fucking echo chamber of social media, and we completely miss the point of what like we're here once, you know. It's that whole thing of like they say was you only die once, and it's completely or sorry you only live once, and that's completely false. It's the case that you only die once and you live every single day,
yeah,
and you have to make it what you want it to be, you know.
yeah. I like that.
So rolling back to training with it being with what you mentioned about how it's light but everything feels shit. Um, I understand because that's sort of like where I'm at again. Like I started adding some more strongman events, but or strongman movements back in, trying to get a bit stronger again and all that sort of stuff. And you go in, you're like, oh yeah, like I'll let me look back on whatever and see what I was doing back in the day. And then you watch videos to see where, for me, like I watched a video to see where the J hook setup was again and stuff like that, And I
Right.
watched the video and I'm like, man, that was fucking rapid. And I'll go and do the set, like, oh, that was sort of shit. So, like,
Yeah.
which way are you setting training up? Are you doing your own training, or do you have a coach as well?
No, I have a coach as well. So I'm coached by Charles, who's with MST Systems. He's
Okay.
a great coach. Been with him since 2023. Um, um, we gelled quite well together, and things have been going pretty
Hmm.
well ever since. So, yeah, but I do exactly the
Nice.
same thing, man. Like I did a set a log today, and then I went back and watched myself do one from like 6 months ago, and I'm like, well, how did I do it like that then? And right now it feels shit. I'm stronger now, surely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the hard thing for me. Like I was sitting doing Axel on Thursday, I think it was, and I was like, I'm definitely stronger than I was however many years ago. And then I go and press, 100 kilo overhead. I'm like, this feels like fucking shit. And it's just such a difference because it's like, yeah, okay, I've not been overhead pressing very much. I've been doing seated stuff or, strict work, but, push pressing and a jerk, it's so different. Um, so with the coaching, how are you? I don't want to dive too deep and give your secrets away or give Charles the secrets away, but like, how do you sort of set it up? Are you doing accumulation blocks and all that sort of stuff, or what's your take on it?
yeah, that's kind of how it is, especially at the minute. I think just like we do bounce off each other a little bit. Charles is great because he very much takes what I've got to say into account, and he gives me that little bit of kind of free reign on certain things on
Mm.
certain days. If I feel like I need it, because there's got to be that kind of. You've got to kind of have that relationship. If I was a novice athlete, for example, then yeah, do as I say, kind of thing. But because I've been doing it for a little while and at a reasonably high level, um, and obviously because I coach myself, I think the fact that he takes all that into account, and we get to have like a discussion about the program and where we're going forward. I
Mm.
think that helps so much. It really does. It can't just be like a dictatorship. It's got to be. You've got to take the athletes into account. Like I've got some athletes that compete at world level, and anytime I write them a new kind of block, I'll be like, right, look, this is up for you. Do you want to have a look at it and see what you think? If there's anything on there that you don't like, within reason. Obviously, there's things that people don't like just because they're hard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But within reason, then let me know, and we'll work to change that or work around it. But Charles is great for
Mm.
that. He's brilliant.
Do you feel that type of approach is common with coaching? Because from my experience, at times it was very much like, here's the program. This is what's going to make you better. Um, do it. and then I don't know if I saw progress at times. Do you feel like that approach of let's have a discussion about it? Like, okay, well, what do you think about this and what do you think about that? And that's where, for myself right now, I don't know if you even know about it. There's a forum, it's a UK forum called Sugden Barbell. It was
Okay.
it was like this is back in 2012, 20. I mean, hell, my training, uh, what's it called? Training log was on there from I think I started in 2008,
Right.
and I was looking back at stuff and from the 2012 when I was winning Scotland's and stuff like that, and looking to see what was I doing at that point. Because when I moved over here, I started training with Shaw, and I started working with coaches, and it was very much a case of like, if you train with Brian, it's like, okay, here's what we're doing,
Mm.
and that was it, type of thing. Um, and I was sitting looking back at some of the stuff I used to do, and I was like, well, that worked really well for me, and that worked really well for me. Is that, do you feel that's a common approach to actually take some of that into account with athletes? Because I'm not sure if it is.
I don't think it
Not in
is.
my experience, at least.
I think it's common within like the, I guess, those that you would consider the really good coaches. So people like Shane at MST Systems, one of the most world-renowned coaches. You've got like the likes of Tom Hibbert. I would imagine that his approach is somewhat similar to that.
Mm.
So I reckon uh, when you've got a really good coach, yeah, they're probably doing that kind of thing with their athletes because there has to be a bit of back and forth. There really has to be. It can't just be do as I say and that be that, because everybody responds a little differently to things, and uh, you've admittedly a good coach should know their athlete well, but then also at the end of the
Hmm.
day, things in life happen and get in the way, and sometimes you'll have a shit session and or a shit week, and that these things they just happen. For example,
Yeah.
there's certain movements I can't do because of my right knee. So I can't do a Bulgarian split squat. Like I physically can do it, but I've got a cyst in the back of my knee which just explodes immediately. Like it'll fill right up as soon as I do one rep. So we don't do those as much as it's a fantastic movement, a fantastic
Yeah.
unilateral movement. We can't do them, and that just is what it is. So if I had a coach saying, "No, you're going to do, three
Hmm.
sets of
Hmm.
heavy SSB Bulgarians," it's just not going to happen.
So what's your workaround then for something like that, if you don't mind me asking?
Workaround, I could do like things like single leg press. Obviously, there's no balance element to that.
Hmm.
But yeah, like things like step ups are all right. To be honest, obviously they're not quite as good as a really heavy Bulgarian split squat. Um, but it's just going to be one of those things that I can't specifically do that movement, and that's all right.
Yeah, and that's from me. It's funny that you raised the knee. I went and got an MRI one of my knees last August. Because I was like, just felt like catchy, and I'd screwed it up snowboarding, and I'd had stuff here and there for a little bit, and I'm like, man, look, okay, like it's getting bad now. Like I need to go and get this checked. I was like, we're putting obviously over here with the health insurance, we're putting so much on health insurance from the pregnancy aspect that we're like, well, we may as well, if we have to max it out, we may as well max it out and get benefit of it.
Yeah.
I got the MRI, and I went to see the surgeon for the follow up, and he's like, well, you do have a torn meniscus on both sides, but it's not a flap; it's just macerated. And I was like, oh,
All
okay.
right.
And I was like, what do we do? He goes, well, we're not going to do anything with that. And he goes, you also have a cyst. I was like, okay, well, what do we do with that? He goes, well, it's touching your neurovascular bundles. We're not going to do anything with that either. And I'm like, right. So what do I do? He goes, just live with it. I'm like, okay. And I started training heavier again because I was just trying to, get away from, work around and all that sort of stuff. Started training heavier again, and I have no knee pain anymore.
Okay.
There's certain
Oh, there
things
you
that
go.
I'm not confident with. Some of the Bulgarian stuff again, I do it, but sometimes it doesn't feel as great.
Mhm.
But like single leg press was a huge one for me with getting knee pain gone. And it's just so funny that you
Okay.
raise that point. Um, with the coaching, I'm trying to think how I want to word it. Where do you feel like the balance is from a perspective of the input from the athlete? Because obviously, again, like you mentioned previously or a little bit before about if it's a novice athlete,
Mhm.
like yep, here, like do as I say and all that sort of stuff. Where do you feel like that sort of more input comes into? And then obviously, you know, there has to be a balance point from a perspective of like, you know, if something just fucking you just don't enjoy something, you're not going to want to
Yeah,
do it.
yeah,
But it's like, well, listen, like I know that you're able to do it, and I know it's going to it'll help you, and you're just trying to avoid it because you don't really want to do the movement. Like, where's
yeah.
that balance point? Do you feel?
Yeah, like there does have to be that element of balance. I've got a great example. I've got a client at the minute who absolutely hates front squats with a passion, but they're kind of relatively new into like competing and strongman and that
Hmm.
kind of thing. I'm trying to explain the benefits, and they understand the benefits, but they still hate it. So yeah, there has to be some kind of balance. I'll try and make sessions in well, especially in regards to this case, um, that aren't just a slog to get through. Like, yeah, you might have
Yeah.
one movement on there that you really don't like, but if you've only got two sets of it, then it's really not that bad. We can get through that and then move on to something that you enjoy more, like a deadlift or like
Hmm.
an RDL or whatever. Um, I think a lot of the time there's just going to be those things that suck, especially in strongman when you've got events like sandbags, especially sandbags for distance, and you've got farmers
Hmm.
that suck to carry. As like a lot of things just will suck. So you've kind of you've got to get around some of this, especially so when they're at these kind of novice levels. A lot of the time, yeah, you're just going to have to grit your teeth and get on with these things. But it's about explaining the benefits to them in a way where they're like, right, okay, I understand that this is going to
Hmm.
do this and this is going to do that. That's why I need to do these movements, instead of just being like, just shut up and do it. So
Yeah,
they
yeah,
need to
yeah.
be kind of on board with it regardless. I think that's very important. It's just about how you word things, really.
Mm. Yeah, the point that you made of strongman just sort of sucking is, I mean, fuck, it's so accurate because I mean, there is so many events, and the other things like we have so many things that we need to train for,
Yeah,
from an event potential perspective that trying to find some or a movement or an exercise or whatever that's going to tick a lot of different events off the card type of thing makes a lot more sense. The front
yeah,
squat can hit so many different boxes that it's massively important in my opinion. Like it was one of the like for me, I think that front squat is one of the best things for strongman personally.
yeah. I would
Um,
agree.
and then it's also like changing a bit of that mental approach as well. With what you said, like, okay, if they've only got two sets, like, well, learn to grin and bear it because at some point in time in a competition, like, you are going to have something which is a grin and bear it event, whether it's a front carry for max or a farmers for max or I mean, I don't think you see it very often anymore, but like you used to do a car deadlift hold for time and things of that
Oh
nature,
yeah,
where it was like a grip test and you're just standing there and it sucks, but what are you going to do? You just got to figure out how to get through some of that stuff.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I think it builds a lot of character, doesn't it? Doing things that you don't like doing, it does build character. I think that's why people do these ice baths because, the recovery benefits of those things are questionable, but it's getting up and doing something that sucks
Hmm.
so that the rest of your day kind of feels a bit easier.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a good point. What's your mental approach to training? Like, how do you go into sessions? Like for me, and this is something that I'm uh, trying to get back. Is like I was always a very, very aggressive lifter. Like if you look back on some of like the videos um, of me training from years past, especially when it was like the gym I owned out in Washington State, where it was my rules type of thing, like insanely aggressive and a bit of a prick and a bit fucking annoying probably to other people. But that was my approach. Like, how do you go into stuff? Do you go in with like a stoic approach, or what's your approach to some of this stuff?
I'm pretty chilled. I'm pretty chilled in all walks of life, to be honest. And training's no different. Sometimes there's definite anxiety there when I'm going in for something
Mm.
that I think is going to be like, up there in terms of difficulty. So I definitely can't get away from that. There'll be some times where I'm really excited if it's something really heavy. I'm like, oh yes, I get to do this on log, or I get to do
Mm,
this on deadlift or whatever, and that excites me. Um, it just kind of depends on the day with that, because if it's something really difficult, it can go one or two ways. It can go down the anxiety route, or it can go down the excitement route. A lot of the time I'll see my program well in advance, and I'll be like, oh fuck yeah, I'm all for that. That's going to be a really good
mm,
session. But then when it comes to the day, I'm like, oof, right, here we go. I've got to switch on now.
yeah.
I don't really have any aggression. All of my aggression comes out after the fact. So if I hit like a PB log and I'm really buzzing about it, then all of it comes out there. But up until that point, there's pretty much zero aggression, and I don't use any
Hmm.
like kind of pre-workouts, whether they be natural or synthetic pre-workouts. I don't use any of that kind of stuff unless it's in
Mm.
competition. And even in competition, there's no aggression there, to be honest. Which I
It's
would
interesting.
I
Yeah.
would like to change, because I think it is definitely a useful characteristic. But that's something I've just got to work on. I've got to try and kind of try and find that in myself, and express it on the
Mm.
competition floor.
Yeah, I think for me, I think I think my strongman experience is probably a little different to a lot of athletes, as well as, like, I started strongman very young. I mean, hell, my first competition was a week before my 18th birthday.
Wow.
And I competed, like, I don't think I was that aggressive until, honestly, probably after my dad passed. I think
Mhm.
then that, like, the switch sort of flipped after that point, and then it became like, when I look back at it now, and I'm like, oh man, yeah, it's so evident to see that everything I was doing was a coping mechanism, you
Mhm.
know. But it was also like I was in the era where, I was watching, like Sven Carlson's documentary, and like he was acting up to the camera, and I would think about that, and I'd get amped up, and it's just a little different nowadays. So I was massively aggressive, and trying to figure that one out again for myself now is hard, because it's like, I'm going into sessions with a different approach, and it's just different, and I don't really know how to, like, get some of that back. And like, I'm so used to that it's almost as if I can't, if I can't get that aggression, then how can I get amped up? How do I perform? Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what that is yet.
I think
I'm not
that's
sure
why
what
we're
that
seeing
is.
like a well, I wouldn't say an influx, but I guess it's more common practice now that we'll have like psychology, people who work in the psychology of the sport,
Mm,
strongman.
yep.
You've got like Curtis Cusimano, who works with MST Systems. You've got Michelle Slusarek as well over here, for example. There's a lot of people who work with that, and things like hypnotherapy, and that's a thing as well, to try and get over, not only just to increase aggression when training, but to kind of give you that different approach to training, different
Mm.
approach to competition, get over some of the anxieties around these things. They are becoming a lot more common practice, which is good, because in mainstream sports, these are things that have been prevalent for years.
No, mass. Yeah. Why do you think it is that we sort of, lagged behind as a sport? Is it because of the underground nature of it, so to speak? It isn't a mainstream sport, and it's a little bit weird, or it's a little bit, different. Like, do you think that's maybe why we sort of lag behind some of like the performance based stuff?
Yeah, it's just because it's not really that kind of popular sport that you see every day. It's almost like it's gate kept by the equipment as well. Like, the equipment is not stuff
Mm,
that you find in normal gyms, like
yeah.
I guess Pure Gym over here, or like I
Yeah.
don't know,
Planet
Planet
Fitness over
Fitness
here.
maybe over
Yeah.
there. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
so to get into strongman, usually you have to know somebody who's into strongman. That
Mhm,
generally
mhm.
seems to be how it works. So like, I was a fan of strongman growing up. I used to watch it on the telly all the time. Never in my wildest dreams thought I would ever do it. And then even when I
Yeah.
started going to the gym, until I was about 26 years old, I had no idea that I could do strongman. I didn't know that was a thing. I
Mm,
didn't know I was allowed to do that. And until I found like a strongman gym that was quite local to where I live. and it was like that was like eye opening. I was like, oh my god, I can do this. Me, what?
Mm.
I thought this was just a special thing for certain people to do. So yeah, it's getting bigger now. It is definitely growing. It's more popular. Social media is helping that. Obviously, Eddie Hall did a lot for the sport when he became
Oh
mainstream.
God, yeah.
Um, but it's still kind of gate kept by the fact that there isn't a log in the gym that you go to commercially. Generally, there isn't Atlas stones lying around for you to train on. These things are a lot fewer and further between. And then also you've got the likes of CrossFit that kind of came out of nowhere and absolutely exploded because it was owned by Reebok, whereas our sport isn't. Well, it's not owned by anybody, is it? It's and it's
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
like it's so split, it's so divided into so many different federations, and every
Yeah.
federation wants theirs to be, number one. And
Number
I
one.
think people need to be more willing to work with each other and help each other out for the good of the sport, because eventually, in turn, that'll benefit everyone. But at the minute, I think people struggle to see the benefits of working with each other. So for now, we're going to be, where we are. I think.
Yeah, and I think you're right with that. I think it's a case of, for me, it was always, the thought process of, it's unregulated and it's a little bit weird and all that sort of stuff. And again, we're we're like the hidden stepchild of, you know,
Yeah,
mainstream sports. Even though it's massively televised, it was a very interesting thing for me to like really dive into and look at. It was like, here we've been on, like, Strongman's been on TV for however many years at this point in time, and it's like, where's that where's that point where we sort of go over the next level type of thing? I mean, I've been asking I think I've been asking myself that question for the last 15 years, and I'm not really sure what it is. I don't know. Like, it just feels like we're just sort of stuck. We're treading water a little bit. Um, I don't know, but I mean,
it's just going to be
ultimately,
about getting exposure out to the mainstream audience, and that's hard to do. And even when we manage to do it again, it's a case of they think we are the freak show, which don't get me wrong, we certainly are the freak show.
yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
but like my opinion was in the past, I can't do this, that's their thing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So yeah. It's getting there slowly, but it's very slow, isn't it? It's painfully slow sometimes.
Yeah, and I think the weight class stuff is definitely like the obviously there's been a weight class stuff for quite a long time, but not to the extent of where it is now. It was always like when I got started, it was a case of like you had 105s and you had open class, and that was it. And then it slowly started building, and slowly started getting a bit more um, more inclusive, so to speak, with
Yeah.
more chances for lighter athletes and all that sort of stuff. Um, I mean, sure, I remember the first year that there was women at the Arnold, and it was like this is a huge stepping stone, and now it's like I can't even wrap my head around not having that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very interesting thing to think back on,
I
and that
think
was not that long ago.
the weight classes are definitely a massive thing. And like if you had people like Giants Live putting on weight class shows, don't get me wrong, not many people would come to them, but because it would give them that extra level of exposure, I think that would help grow the sport a lot, because not everybody's a 6'6" behemoth of a man.
Yeah,
It's a lot easier to watch a bloke like me who's 5'9" and 105 kilos lifting something, and I'm more relatable than Hafthor Bjornsson will ever be
a
to the,
hundred
to the
percent.
normal person. The problem is with that is probably a money sink, at least initially, because nobody's going to care to come and watch
Mm-hmm.
Tom Owens at Giants Live under 105s. Nobody knows who that
Yeah.
is. Nobody cares who that is. So it would require a transition period, but would that be worth it? I don't know. I don't know. It's really
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to say, but it's obviously from their point of view they haven't done this yet because they feel like it wouldn't be it wouldn't be useful or wouldn't be profitable, I should say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. It's just such a everything has to be weighed up from a business perspective as well, and it's hard because we do want to see this sport really reach the next level and grow and um, finding that point where everyone's happy, so to speak, is it's very difficult to even think about what that would look like. I think OSG is doing fantastic stuff. From perspective of getting everyone, weight classes, everyone there for a world title and all that sort of stuff. But even that, it's evident to see that it's selling to a spectator audience, at least stateside, is very difficult.
Yeah, yeah. I would like to see.
You know,
I'm sure people have harped on about this for long enough, but I'm sure I would like to see OSG come to the UK. Not not just because it would be easier for me just to drive down the road and compete, but
yeah,
like you say, just because it's so much more accessible and generally OSG being out in the States is great, but the majority of people are just friends and family. And I think
yeah,
you would see more friends and family willing to drive an hour to 3 hours to attend the show and support their friend or loved one than you would like flying across the country or like you say across the world. Um, it
yeah.
would be interesting to see if that would change things and make it a bit more of a profitable show. But I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I've thought about that as well because it is, going back to when I first moved over here and was trying to compete, and I'm like, this is not viable, and I don't know maybe if that's where, because obviously when I was competing heavy, like when I first moved across here, like I moved over here end of 2013. Before that, I mean, there was days the year I tore my bicep, I had competed 13 days that year.
Yeah,
Um, over 12 shows because one of them was a 2 day. And that's not really, and that was like halfway through the season. I still had UK, 3 days at UK's left. I still had, whatever left. And that's not very, I don't feel like that level of competing is as prevalent these days. I think it's
mm,
prevalent with SCL type of stuff, but not within the UK. Not because that was all local, technically local UK based shows.
yeah,
And I remember coming over here and being like, okay, well, if I want to compete, I can't. I cannot physically afford to compete the level I was, because it was $1,000 to $2,000 to go and compete every time
yeah. It's
between the
crazy.
flight, hotel, and everything. It's huge money.
Mm,
Whereas in the UK, it's like, oh yeah, we're going to drive from Glasgow down to. Um, I'm trying to think where Felix was based again, or is based, like Lancashire or around that area, and we would compete down there and be, oh, we're driving for 5 hours and we're going to get a hotel and it's £100 and we're set,
yeah,
So you're going away for £200 a weekend when you add some food in, and it's just not the same. I think personally, if OSG was in the UK, I think you'd see a lot more attendance um, from the UK side of stuff. But then
mhm.
it's like, well, how would you view it from a US athlete? But how many people are coming for the US athletes? It's such a balancing point, and I don't know what the answer to it is.
Yeah, it's hard because half of the athletes from OSG, if OSG has 400 athletes, 200 of them are from the USA or maybe more
Yeah,
a lot of the time. And I think what they see is because a lot of their money comes from entry fees, I think, I don't know, but I think Americans would be less willing to travel than maybe a lot of other countries would be willing to travel to America. So then you might lose, 25% of those
hmm,
athletes, 50% of those athletes, maybe. And then all of a sudden you're making less money off entry fees. So you've got to make more money from spectator tickets. But then that's a risk because nobody comes to the shows.
yeah, yeah. That balancing act of it all is wild to really like when you start delving into it more. It's to try to find that balance point of what would make the show successful from a athlete participation standpoint, but then also trying to build the audience, um, because of a lot more convoluted than you think.
Mm,
It's difficult, I think.
yeah.
But I mean, I would love it to be able to, if it was a case of like, jump on a flight to the UK and boom, HQ set up the booth and I'm just there versus me travel half across the country and then doing everything else.
Yeah.
But that's me being selfish on that one. Um, so rolling back to yourself, I want to get more into some of your thought processes and stuff with yourself. Obviously, strongman being, um, been the crux of your life and stuff like that. Do you feel like there's ever been a time where the ambition from strongman in terms of going for a title or the big lift and all that sort of stuff, has it worked against you? Like is there a con to being a driven individual, do you think?
Yeah, I would say so. There's kind of, even when there's no pressure, you put your own pressure on yourself. So a lot of the time, I feel like I have to compete, even though I shouldn't really feel like that, because again, nobody cares if Tom Owens shows up to the competition, really, in
Mm.
the grand scheme of things. Um, but yeah, in my mind, I'm like, no, I have to do this show because that's what I'm supposed to do. And so you put a lot of internal pressure on yourself, and there is kind of no reason for it. And I understand there's no reason for myself to feel like that, but it's like I can't stop it. So even
Mm.
if I'm like, so I've been carrying this knee injury for a few years now. It's getting to the point where it's not actually too bad day to day, but there's been points where like just getting up the stairs is, a 10 out of 10 thing for me to do.
Mm.
Um, so, and at that point, you're like, well, why are you doing this? And I'm like, well, in my own head, I'm talking to myself. I'm like, well, I have to do this. This is what I do. You know, and again, there's no reason for me to feel like that. But yeah, that's definitely a
What
con.
do you think the Yeah, what do you think the dangers of that is? Because I mean, I understand that completely, and then, like, especially when for me, being in the perspective where I was like, okay, I'm trying to get to Worlds, I have to do this show, and I have to place in this position, and if I don't, then I have to go to this next show, and you can't slow down. No, like, okay, you're injured. Fuck it, doesn't matter. You're just gonna keep going. Like, it's a pretty fucked up place to be. Like, where do you think that sort of mindset, do you think it's driven by the sport? Do you think it's something that we just have in ourselves, or what do you think it is?
I think it's that, all of us are very competitive. All of us want to win. All of us want to be, for me personally, England's strongest man, Britain's strongest man, Europe's
Mhm.
strongest man, world's strongest man. So we feel like if we don't do everything that we can to get these titles, then what are we doing it for? And
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's definitely very dangerous because before OSG 2024, I looked like I'd just been in a car crash. Like I was not walking properly at all. Both of my knees were
Mm.
shot. And then I've got to go do a 400-kilo yoke or whatever it was at the show. And, it was just an absolute disaster. My life in that time period was just awful because I go to work, I'm on my feet all day coaching people, and I'm just constantly in pain. And then I come home
Mm.
and I'm constantly in pain. I can't get off the sofa. I can't get up the stairs. I can't go to the kitchen to get food. Like it's absolutely awful. It is very dangerous. And I think a lot of it stems from, if you don't do this show, you are no longer relevant. At least that's definitely in my head.
That's a massive part that was a massive part of my experience.
Yeah. And like again, I'll say it again. Nobody cares if Tom Owens does the show, but in my head, I am like, if I don't do England's Strongest Man, then nobody knows who I am. Nobody cares who I am, and
Mhm.
I like to be. Well, not I like to be. I want to be. I want to be that name. That's like, Tom Owens was this. He was really good at this. He was that guy. I want to be that guy, and you feel like if you don't do every show, you're not that guy. There's somebody else is going to be
Mhm.
that guy, and you don't want that. So yeah, it's weird, but it's it just
No,
is.
I understand. Do you worry about the other end of it from a perspective of when you do hang up the belt, or you'd say, like, something happens, you're not competing again? Do you worry about that aspect where it's a case of like, okay, if you get to the point where some, like, you've retired, let's say that it's not even an injury, it's like you've decided, I'm not going to compete anymore, um is that something that you think you're going to be okay with because you're deciding, or like, do you worry about that challenge of reintegration into non-competitive life, so to speak?
Yeah, I definitely worry about that, and it's one of those where, like, especially if I've not ticked off all the boxes that I want to tick off, it's going to be even more difficult. So, like, OSG is a box that I would love to tick off, but I realize the quality of athlete there is just absolutely ridiculous. So, if I was to go
Mhm.
through my strongman career, so to speak, and never tick that box off, it would be like it would be a tough pill to swallow. The same with Europe's. Like, I've been close, but I've never won that title. On so with the retiring, I think so what I've been trying to do is dip my toe into a little bit more variety still in the strongman world. So like I said, myself and Thomas Fisher do a podcast, so I'm still in the scene
Mhm.
there. I do commentary for Natural
Yeah.
Strongman, so I do that, and obviously I do the coaching as well. So I think
Mhm.
having those little separate avenues that are still within the sport is definitely something that's going to help whenever that time comes. But I definitely need those things, otherwise, God knows.
Yeah, it's difficult, and that's the thing. It's funny that you raised that point of ticking off the boxes and all that sort of stuff, because that's one of the ones that I found the hardest was that stepping back and be like, well, I didn't really achieve everything I wanted to. I still
Yeah,
have those moments of like, well, I want to. What if I could do this, and what if I could do that? And I don't know. There's a part of me that wonders, could I still go?
yeah,
Like, just turned 38, but at the same time, like my body's pretty good. Could I still go? I don't know, and
we
it's
don't
it's
know.
a hard sort of pill to swallow, especially being so close to worlds so many times. I don't think it's wise uh, for me where I'm at in my life to be in a position where I'm like, nope, I'm going to go and try and compete at World's Strongest Man, because the sport today is, even in the last 5 years, it's drastically different.
Yeah,
Um, but I still wonder, where's my physical limit, type of
mm,
thing.
yeah. I mean, I
Um,
guess, I guess in that instance, it's as long as it's not all consuming, it's maybe something that you could pursue.
but then how do you avoid that? Because obviously, do you feel strongman's all consuming for you?
Definitely, but like I don't have a family, so I feel like having a family probably you've got other priorities in life.
Yeah,
I don't know because I don't have one, but I would imagine
yeah,
that's the case.
yeah. And it's a balancing point. I think that I think it also comes down to like what life is. Like realistically, I think it comes down to what your setup is. If you're
Mm,
working a 9 to 5 job, then okay, it's and you've got a family and all that sort of stuff. How do you integrate something else into that? Whereas if you are a coach or you are involved in the sport in some aspect, like myself, maybe it is a bit easier. I don't really know, and it's not something that I've even raised with my wife or anything like that. It's just there's times where I'm like, man, I wonder, can I still go, just from a selfish aspect, and
yeah,
it's funny just from really, more so watching other athletes being like, hmm, I was pretty good at that in my day. Body feels good. Could I? I don't know. And it's but I think that's where then you have that other aspect of it where it's like, okay, well, if you get hurt, then there's a lot more to think about these days.
yeah, yeah. More at stake.
Um, you know. So going back to yourself, again, we spoke about the cons on that. What do you feel that strongman's given you? Like, what do you think is like it's like sort of added to your life? Obviously we know the negative aspects where it's hard to get up and down stairs and it's hard to fucking function on a daily basis. But what about the other side of it? Where what have you gained from it?
If I could summarize it in one word, it would be purpose. Strongman has given me,
Mm,
a reason, and I will always be grateful for that. Uh, Honestly, I think I would just be, not that I'm not a normal guy living a normal life because I certainly am, but I would feel I feel a little bit more. Oh, this is going to sound really cringy. I feel more special now because I'm Britain's strongest
mm,
under 105 kilo man. Like I feel like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
who proud of that achievement. And if I didn't have strongman, I would just be the PT at Pure Gym who's coaching people to lose a bit of body fat, and that's absolutely fine as well. But that's just not what I want for myself. I suppose I was always very good at sports when I was a kid growing up. I was a very good badminton player as well in my teens and late teens, and I always had kind of my eyes set on something important, and to me
Yeah.
success in sport or success in whatever I was doing was what I deemed important. So to
Mm.
find strongman at a time where I was not doing any sport, I was literally just going to the gym for the kind of sake of going to the gym. uh yeah, it gave me that purpose, and it makes me feel special. I'll say that, as cringy as that sounds, it makes me feel special doing strongman. I love it for that.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think it's taken from you on the converse side of it? Because obviously, the pain and all that sort of stuff is one aspect of it. Do you feel it's stubbed or stunted growth in other aspects of life? Because for me personally, let me give you my insight. Just so I'm not putting you on the spot. I think for me, it. I don't know if it would. I don't know if I would say it stunted my growth as a person. I think it benefited me massively, and it changed who I was. Um, I think there's a lot of people in this world who would say that it stunted my growth, um, and I think it changed how I interact with the world. So, like for me personally, I very much have an outlook with life in general, um, the, of well, everything I have done in my life has brought me here. Whether it was losing my dad, whether it was doing strongman or whatever, like life would look drastically different if I hadn't made those decisions. So I never really feel like it's taken from me, but I'm also very aware that there's probably times where being so locked in, one example, and it's such a, high level materialistic, so to speak, answer is I tell my wife, so when I first moved stateside, I lived in Colorado, fantastic scenery, fantastic hiking, fantastic snowboarding, all that sort of stuff. And I didn't snowboard for 14 years until I met my wife when we first started dating. And she's like, "How
Okay.
the hell did you live in Colorado and you never snowboarded, you never hiked, you never anything?" I was like, "Because I was strongman." So I suppose for me, that's my materialistic, it stunted me there. But otherwise, I don't think it did, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I totally get that. I would say my experience has been very similar. There's, I'm grateful for strongman, and I wouldn't be in the position that I am now if I hadn't done all of the things that I have done.
Hmm.
I probably would have never met Ellen, and Ellen's wonderful. So, like, I certainly can't say it stunted me there. But then there are times where in the past I've been like invited to either a social occasion or to do something fun, um, like go to a theme park or something, and I've turned those down
Hmm.
because I've thought, well, there is a 1% chance that this might injure me, so I'm not going to do
Yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
because if I get injured, and it's looking back, it's so ridiculous, because I used to do all sorts of things, and there was never a risk of injury, but now all of a sudden, because I'm a competing athlete, and I need to be in good condition, even though my knees are fucked. If I can't do anything now, because because there's a 0.001% chance that I might
Hmm.
twist my knee. When
Yep.
the ironic thing was, I had turned down a social occasion, and then I was taking the bin out, and I dislocated my knee because I slipped taking the bin out, and that was 4 days before a competition. That was the time when I was supposed to be wrapped in bubble wrap. Honestly, it's just
It's
ridiculous.
insane.
You overthink so many things, because you're meant to be an athlete, and you're meant to be healthy, and this, that, and the other, and there's danger everywhere.
Oh, it's insane. So then, leading on from that, like, how do you then be present now? Like, do you go to social events now, or did you get past that sort of stunt of things, or how do you focus on being present with life, but then also maintaining the competitive aspect of who you are?
Honestly, I'm not really a very social person these days. So yeah, possibly it has stunted me in that. I don't do a lot. I like to I go from the house to the gym. Um, that's a lot of what I do. But
Hmm.
when me and Ellen do things, and I'll try never to shy away from something if we want to do something fun, because I know that the thoughts that I've had in the past is just it's just ridiculous, really. And I
Yeah,
need to not think like that, because as much as strongman is my life, there's a lot more things to do other than strongman. Um, so yeah, I'm definitely trying, but it probably between strongman and I did a little bit of bodybuilding before that, which is even less social. Between the two of them, it's probably made me less social than I would be otherwise, I would say.
yeah. It's funny. Like that's the same for me. Like I mean, I'm social to an extent. I'm probably, if I'm honest, I'm probably more social after meeting Michelle than I was before, because previously it was like, okay, it was the training crew. Whether it was when I was in the UK, whether it was over here, it was like the training crew, and that was it. Okay, I would go to university or I'd go to school over here, and then it was the training crew. And aside from that, I'm at the house by myself.
Yeah.
So I'm probably more social these days. Um, but I do still find myself being like, okay, like that's me. I've had my social. Like, leave me the fuck alone now. Um,
Yeah.
and I hate saying that, because I feel like it's a bit of like being a bit of a dick to friends and all that sort of stuff. But I also feel like, and I don't know if you can relate to this, like my social battery is quite low.
Yeah.
Um, where I enjoy some of the company and all that sort of stuff, but I do find myself getting not overwhelmed. I don't want to say I'm overwhelmed, but I'm very much like, okay, I've had my fill. Especially like, say like going to the events, like going to the OSG, like the one in Wisconsin. That
Mm.
was so I drove there, drove out in 2 days, and then I straight shot it back, and it's like cathartic. So you're on the booth for. I think that was the first day that they did the teens as well. So it was like setup day, then 4 days on the booth, um, and then I drove back, and it was 17 hours drive back, and it was like, this is awesome. I'm not talking to anybody. I'm just like, I'm talking to people when I go and fill up the gas tank, or grab a monster from a gas station. But aside from that, okay, my wife will call me checking in. I'm not run off the road somewhere. But aside from that, that was it. So my social battery is probably vastly different to a lot of our circle, and I think that's probably hard on her at times as well, because she knows that she probably knows that I'm going along for her at times,
Mm.
which I
Yeah.
feel a bit guilty about. But hey, it is what it is. Um, to wrap things up, I wanted to ask a couple of things. Obviously, strongman training, everything's extremely goal focused. Um, who are you without the goal? Like, if there isn't a goal in place, who are you? How do you approach life and all that sort of stuff? Or do you not even know anymore, because everything is so goal focused, and it has been for quite a while?
Yeah, that's a hard one, man, because there's always been a goal. I'm not. I don't know if I can really answer that question. I
I don't
think.
know. I don't know how to answer it at times. I don't know how I would answer that. 'Cause this is a Chat GPT question. I'll be
All
completely honest
right.
about that.
I would say
I
for
was
myself
I was like,
personally,
that's an interesting one.
that is a very good question. Personally, without a goal, I really don't know. My counterpoint would be that there's always a goal, that there always can be something that you can
Yeah.
strive towards, whether that's in business or in I guess in sport in this instance. Um, Even if it was just I want to do something in the gym as opposed to doing
Hmm.
something on the competition floor, or I want to hit this many clients by this month or
Yep.
whatnot. And then especially in what I do, it's other people have these goals and I have these goals for them as well. I'll use a good example. I have a client called Dan McNicholas, who had done one opens level competition, like a local show, and his
Hmm.
goal was to get to Giants Live, and my goal was to get Dan McNicholas to Giants Live, and within 10 months, Dan McNicholas was at Giants Live, and like this is it's this kind of, if it's not my goal, I will chase your goal kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
and so yeah, without a goal, don't know, mate. I probably couldn't tell you the answer to that one, but yeah.
When I saw that pop up, and I was like, that's a good one, because I don't know how to answer that. Because for me, same thing. Like, it was always a massive strongman goal. And then when strongman sort of started to wane a little bit from not competing as much, then it was a case of like, it became business goals. It became, family goals or whatever. And it's so silly, it's like even, like I snowboard a lot in the winter, and like obviously with my wife being pregnant this winter, she didn't do anything. So I was like, I was out on the mountain by myself every single time this time. And I was like, okay, by the end of the year, I want to teach myself this trick and I want to learn this. And I have an app that tracks like my days on the mountain. How much vertical have I done and my top speeds and all that sort of stuff.
Cool.
And when we were in with the honeymoon in Switzerland, I was like, what was my top speed? It was like 43 miles an hour, and then I hit like 44 miles an hour this year. I was like, I want to hit 50, and it's just like that's such a silly. It's a silly, such a like a dangerous fucking goal, and it's so silly. But it's like, well, it's still a goal, So I don't know how I would even begin to answer some of that stuff. But talking to Dan, I want to ask you this, just because that's quite a good thing to ask. And I was like, what was your approach? If he's done a local competition, how do you approach something? That's not like a little goal from a perspective of like going from a local show to like an intermediate to an open show and then Giants Live. That's a big fucking thing. And in 10 months, that's a jump. So how do you approach something like that?
So that was very much, I had met Dan at a gym opening in Cumbria, and when you just know when you're like, there's something about you. So we were just loading sandbags to a yoke height that was just randomly set because it was in the gym. It was probably about 60 inches, 62 inches. So like a high loading height. And it was like an introduction to the gym. So people were just picking things up and lifting them and trying them out because the gym had just opened. And this bloke, he put the 100 kilo sandbag over. Fine, I'll put it back. He put the 120 over, again, like it's, a child's toy. Fine, I put it back. Put the 140 over, and I'm like, well, hold on a second. This isn't normal. No, people can't just do that.
Yeah.
And then he put the 160 over, again, like it weighed nothing. And I'm like, right. I'm like, right, this is weird. This is really freaky. Yeah. So at that point, I just kind of knew. So I had a bit chat with him. We started coaching. We took his deadlift from 340 in September to 400 in December, which, again, at that
4 months?
That's not normal. So
wow,
the dude's a monster. He's an absolute freak. He picked up somebody's truck because it was parked too close to his driver's side door. He just moved their truck out of the way.
Wow.
So, like, in that instance, I very much got lucky. I encountered this bloke who happened to have all of the God-given talent in the universe, and that one was.
I mean, I was getting ready to sing your praises as a coach, and then you just hit the money.
I did a really good job as well, yeah. But at that point, you've got to. He's so freakishly strong, but you've still got to direct all of that strength into the right places. Because if if you don't teach him the things right, then all that strength doesn't mean anything. Strongman's so technical, especially some of the lifts like monster dumbbell and bag toss and all of those things that we wouldn't see that much a few years ago that are popping up now. That they're a lot more technical, and you can have all the strength and power in the world, but if you can't direct it in the right way, then it's pointless.
Yeah, no, 100%. All right, one more question to wrap it up. And I know the answer to this one, or at least I think so, based upon the questions that we've spoken about. What matters most to you in life?
Oh God, that could get very deep, couldn't it? Oh, that's a toughie. Because if I don't say Ellen, she's going to chin me.
Hey, my answer was strongman.
Right.
It is hard though. It's a hard one to actually really quantify what means the most to you.
Yeah, that is a very hard question. Oh God, I would say, oh fucking hell, Ken. Whoa, dearie me.
Ending it on a hard one.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, I mean, strongman does mean the world to me, but especially at this point in time, I would have to say it's Ellen because, frankly, we both experienced a great loss recently. Our little cat died, which was really sad. We loved him so much, and at this point in time, I don't think I can be without her. So, yeah. As
Okay, well,
important as strongman is, that one's going to trump it this time.
no, I trust me, I totally get it because for me, um, having the relationships in the family and someone to just unwind with and decompress with is it's definitely changed how I think how I approach life, you know.
Yeah,
Um, and even now, like with my son, it's like I thought I was doing okay, and then when you've got this little guy looking back at you, you're like, holy shit! Like it's a whole other thing. It's very very cool. It makes you feel very small. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, it's a cool thing. Anyway, not to get even deeper. Where can everyone find you if they want coaching, if they want to just follow your progress, all that sort of stuff?
So you can follow me on Instagram. I am at Tom the Owens, all one word. You can find me on YouTube as well at Logged and Loaded. That's the name of our little podcast, if you don't mind plugging that one.
Yep,
But yeah, generally Instagram's the best place to catch me. If you want coaching, you can pop up in the DMs, or I've got a inquiry form link in my bio as well. So yeah,
perfect. Well, hey, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I love it. I love having these conversations where we actually. It's not just what did you like. What got you into strongman? And obviously we spoke a lot about strongman, but there's so many little intricate pieces of it, and I really love having these conversations. So, thank you, Tom, for coming on.
thank you very much for having me, mate. I really do appreciate it.
Good mate, awesome. I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
Cheers.